हेलो फ्रेंड्स, इम्बाइब। प्रीवियस वीडियो में हमने द लिविंग वर्ल्ड चैप्टर में लिविंग बीइंग्स क्या होते हैं, उनके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स क्या होते हैं और कुछ डिस्टिंग्विशिंग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ लिविंग बीइंग्स पढ़ी थी, जिसमें मेटाबॉलिज्म, ग्रोथ, रिप्रोडक्शन और कॉन्शियसनेस कुछ ऐसे डिस्टिंग्विशिंग कैरेक्टर्स थे जो हमने डीप में पढ़े थे। नेक्स्ट जो टॉपिक है जो हम इस वीडियो में कवर करेंगे वो है डाइवर्सिटी इन लिविंग वर्ल्ड। तो फ्रॉम अ करंट एस्टिमेशन अप्रॉक्सीमेटली जो है 1.7 मिलियन स्पीशीज़ 1.7 मिलियन स्पीशीज़ इनको जो है साइंटिफिकली नेम किया गया है और क्लासिफाई किया गया है। These include 1.2 million animals and over 0.5 million of species of plants. Amongst animals जो है insects form the largest group. Insect form the largest groups, that is over 10 lakh 25,000 species. It is estimated that majority of species diversity is confined to tropical rainforest and a great many exist in underwater formations in tropical oceans. तो आगे अब इसके ये जो हमने पूरा एस्टिमेट एक बनाया है कि टोटल 1.7 मिलियन जो स्पीशीज़ हैं उनको अभी तक नेम किया गया है, क्लासिफाई किया गया है, इतने आइडेंटिफाइड हैं, और जिसमें से 1.2 मिलियन एनिमल्स हैं और 0.5 मिलियन प्लांट्स हैं। और अमंग्स एनिमल्स जो है इंसेक्ट्स जो है वो उनका सबसे लार्जेस्ट ग्रुप है, दैट इज़ ओवर 10 लाख 25,000 स्पीशीज़। अब एग्जिस्टिंग लिविंग स्पीशीज़ जो हैं वो कहाँ का आउटकम है? 3.5 बिलियन ईयर्स अगो ऑफ एवोल्यूशनरी प्रोसेस ऑन दिस अर्थ, जिसमें से नियरली 15,000 न्यू ऑर्गेनिज्म जो है डिस्कवर किए जाते हैं हर साल 15,000 न्यू ऑर्गेनिजम्स डिस्कवर किए जाते हैं। It is not possible to find out an organism of known characters from the vast number of organisms. A clearer understanding of this huge variety of organisms can be studied by dividing these into smaller groups or subgroups, जिनको categories भी कहते हैं। Categories. And each group or subgroup comprising of organism with more or less similar characteristics. तो इसी मेथड को ऑफ प्लेसिंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स इनटू ग्रुप्स एंड सब ग्रुप्स डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द एक्सटेंट ऑफ सिमिलैरिटी एंड डिफरेंसेस, इसी को कहते हैं क्लासिफिकेशन। दिस मेथड इज कॉल्ड क्लासिफिकेशन। और ये जो डिवीज़न है ऑर्गेनिज्म का इनटू डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स follows certain rules. That is why the term is called taxonomy. Taxonomy, which is used for classification of organisms following certain rules or principles. The term taxonomy, ये जो term है ये term दिया था A.P.D. Candolle. Yes, it was given by A.P.D. Candolle. Now, moving on to next. What are the elements of taxonomy? What are the elements of taxonomy? So the branch of science dealing with the study of principle and procedure of classification is called taxonomy. तो ये क्या है? Principle, study of principles and procedures of classification is called taxonomy. Linnaeus जो है इनको फादर ऑफ टैक्सोनॉमी कहा जाता है. Linnaeus, he is called the father of taxonomy. एक और फादर ऑफ टैक्सोनॉमी जिनको कंसिडर किया जाता है सैंटपाउ. ही इज़ कंसिडर्ड एज द फादर ऑफ टैक्सोनॉमी. और जो फंडामेंटल एलिमेंट्स हैं टैक्सोनॉमी के वो कुछ इस प्रकार हैं विच आर एज फॉलोज. नंबर 1, characterization and identification. Characterization and identification. Number 2 is nomenclature. Number 3 is classification. Now we'll try to understand these terms. What is characterization and identification? It is the determination of the similarities of an organism with an already known organism based upon the specific characters. Okay, and what is nomenclature? It is the determination of correct name of an organism according to established universal rules. Okay, now classification, it is the ordering of organismal groups into categories according to their affinities under the systemic plan. Okay, moving on to systematics. Now this word systematic, it was first used by Carolus Linnaeus, and according to him, systematics is the discipline of biology which deals with the kind and diversity of all organisms and the existing relationships amongst them. Now, generally, the terms such as classification, systematics, and taxonomy are used interchangeably, but some taxonomists like Simpson 1961, he related them with separate field. He defined the uses. What are the uses of systematics? Is that it helps in providing knowledge of great diversity of animals and plants, providing knowledge and it also provides information regarding evolution which took place in amongst plants and animals by knowing the distinction, relationship, their habitat and habits. It thus gives a vivid picture of entire organic diversity. Now, second point you can add is that it helps in identification of fossils. Identification of fossils, which can also give you useful information about the phylogeny of organisms. Okay. Now, third point, you can also say that newly discovered organisms can also be identified through systematics. So, identification of newly discovered organisms. Now moving on to next, which is nomenclature, we are going to understand the concept of nomenclature. Now, what is nomenclature? We have discussed it previously, that nomenclature is the determination of correct name of an organism according to established universal rules. And there is a need to standardize the naming of living organism such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. A variety of nomenclatural methods are described, जैसे कि number 1, vernacular names. What are these? So these are the local names. Local names or the common language are called as vernacular names. So many vernacular names exist for an organism in different languages. जैसे कुछ जगह पे किसी पौधे या फिर एनिमल को कुछ और नाम से बुलाते हैं या कुछ और नाम दिया जाता है, तो दैट इज़ वर्नाकुलर नेम, और ये वेरी करता है फ्रॉम प्लेस टू प्लेस. एंड द सेकेंड इज़ द साइंटिफिक नेम्स. The scientific names, these are based on definite rules and criteria. ओके जिसमें से सबसे पहला जो है इसका जो हम है दैट इज़ polynomial nomenclature. Polynomial nomenclature. What is this now? The system was used before 1750, and in this system the names of the plants are based upon morphological characters, only the morphological characters. Example, caryophyllum. This is a nomenclature which was based on only the morphological characters. Okay, जैसे for example the name caryophyllum sextalis follis gramineus umbellatus corymbus. Meaning it is caryophyllum growing on rocks, having grass like leaves, and uh, and uh, and umbellate and corymb arrangement of flower. But these names became lengthy and difficult to remember. After this, there was binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature. In binomial nomenclature, the first word is a generic name and the second word is a specific name. For example, I wrote Mangifera indica. This is the generic name and this here is the specific name. And the letter in the bracket shows the name of the scientist who gave the name of the organism. For example, L here stands for Linnaeus. This name was given by the scientist Carolus Linnaeus. The scientific names are in Latin because Latin was a language of scholars at that time of Linnaeus, and no change is possible in the language because this language has no synonyms. Linnaeus gave some principles of binomial nomenclature in Philosophia Botanica. but the nomenclature was used in species planetarum. You might be knowing this. Species planetarum. And here the names and descriptions of about 5900 species of plants were given. Later he published Systema Natura. Naturae, where about 4326 species of animals were described. Here of plants. Okay, now we will be talking about the ICBN. What is the ICBN? ICZN, ICNB, ICNCP, ICTV. What all these stand for? Now, the scientific names have been standardized through some international agencies, which are these. ICBN stands for International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. ICZN stand for International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. ICNB stands for International Code for Nomenclature of Bacteria. And ICNCP stands for International Code of Nomenclature for cultivated plants. And currently developed is the ICTV, which stands for International Committee for the Taxonomy of Viruses. Okay, now what we'll talk about is the rules for binomial nomenclature. What are these rules? So now we begin. The ICBN and ICZN, which we were talking about, these formulated certain rules and regulations for giving scientific names to all organisms. And these rules were as follows. Number one was that valid name of organism has two components, which I told earlier, that is the generic name and the specific name. The generic name should begin with the capital letter and the species name should begin with a small letter. For example, which I wrote earlier, Mangifera indica. You can see over here, I wrote the specific name with the small letter and the generic name with the capital letter. Now second which we can talk about is that the specific scientific name should be printed in italics. This should be printed in italics. But if handwritten, you can't write it in italics, no? So what we do is scientific name should be underlined in such case. For example, if I wrote Mangifera indica, I can't write it in italics, no? So what I need to do is to underline this. The name of the author, fourth point which we will talk about is the name of the author should be written after the scientific name in Roman type with capital letter without any comma in between. For example, if I write Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens. So I'll write Linnaeus. I have to write Linnaeus. Why Linnaeus? Because this was given by Linnaeus. This is the complete scientific name for modern man, right? This shows that Linnaeus was the first scientist who named man as Homo sapiens. The next point which we can talk about is the scientific name should not contain less than 3 and more than 12 letters. Okay, and what is the sixth point which you need to consider is the principle of priority. Principle of priority. Now what is this principle of priority? It is the most important of all the rules of ICBN. If first name given to the organism is valid in terms of rules, that will be considered at the first preference. Okay, any other valid name given after that will be considered as synonym. Okay, no names are recognized prior to those used by Linnaeus in 1785. That means in the 10th edition of Systema Naturae. Okay, now the seventh rule which was given by ICBN and ICZN was that all the three words, that is the generic name, the species name and author citation, these will collectively form binomial epithet. This comes in the seventh rule. What was the last rule which they talked about or which they told was the last rule which you need to follow is if the species name has two or more words in its name, a hyphen is put between these. Okay, such names are compound specific names. Okay, for example, if I write hibiscus rosa sinensis, right? So one hyphen is used in between, sinensis. Okay, this is compound specific name. Now I use the word in between synonyms. Synonyms, what are these? In case two or more names are given, the oldest, the name given first is recognized as valid name. Okay, and the other names which are given later are called synonyms. What are tautonyms? There are tautonyms also. What are these? When generic and specific name are same. Okay, for example, ratus. Here you can see that generic name and the specific name are same. Okay, so these are called tautonyms. Tautonyms are not recognized by botanists. Okay, now what are autonyms? There are autonyms also. What are these? When species and subspecies names are same. For example, Corvus splendens, splendens. Here you can see that the species name and the subspecies name are same. Another example which we find out is Acacia nilotica. Nilotica. Here also you can see that the species and the subspecies name is the same. There is one more term which you need to understand along with these three. Another term is homonyms. Now what are these homonyms? So homonyms are where one name is given for two different plants. For example, Prunus dulce. Prunus dulce is the specific or the scientific name for both almond and plum. This is a specific name for both almond and plum. That's why these are called homonyms. Now we will be talking about type specimen. What is this type specimen? Type specimen. In this we are going to study some terms, that is holotype. What is this holotype? Holotype is nomenclature type. Okay. Second, isotype. What is isotype? This is the duplicate of holotype. Duplicate of holotype. What is paratype? Paratype. This is any other specimen described along with holotype. Any other specimen described along with holotype. Next, fourth is syntype. What is syntype? Any one of the two or more specimens cited by author when there is no holotype. Okay. Now fifth is lectotype. Lectotype. What is lectotype? The specimen selected from original material to serve as nomenclatural type when the holotype is missing. Right. Now sixth term we use is neotype. Neotype is new nomenclatural type. New means new. New nomenclatural type. When whole or original material is missing. Okay. Now seventh or last is topotype. What is topotype? It is the name given to specimen collected from same locality from which the holotype was originally collected. Okay, so these were the type specimens which we have gone through. Now the next topic which we are going to study is the taxonomic categories. We will be discussing taxonomic categories in the next video lecture. Thank you so much. If you were unable to understand any concept regarding the diversity in the living world, you can ask in the comment section. Please do like, subscribe and share the video. Thank you so much.